What's going on, guys? Today is August 3rd, 2020. Today we got a story about Doug Pederson, the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, being positively diagnosed with the novel coronavirus, also known as Covid-19. In this video, we'll discuss how the mainstream media, along with the federal government and these major sports organizations, are basically building a false reality for us regarding this COVID-19, quote, pandemic, one which was, of course, planned and launched by this New World Order in an attempt to get everybody to start socially conforming to new norms as far as how we're doing business, how we're allowed to shop, things of that nature. Doug Pederson is the second NFL head coach, at least that I'm aware of, to have been diagnosed with the virus. The first one being Sean Payton back on March 19th, right after the whole pandemic charade began. And again, these mainstream media outlets fully on board with the agenda to bring about this New World Order through fear, making people fear not only each other, not only those they do not know, but also their own body, in what is truly a twisted, sick, evil agenda that needs to be exposed and flipped upside down. So let's get into the numerology of this story. We only need our two most basic ciphers to look at the numbers here and make sense of what we're seeing. The first is English ordinal, which is the most basic, most simple cipher, with the alphabetic order numbered 1 through 26. The reduction method then uses the rules of numerology to reduce each double-digit number to a single digit prior to adding it to the equation. Now, whether or not Doug Pederson is aware of this agenda, I'd say there's a pretty good chance he is, but he doesn't need to. They take these tests, they send them in, and everyone needs to research the type of testing that's being used, these RNA tests, which, when amplified enough, can produce a positive result no matter what sample is taken. And the laboratories have every capability of producing a false positive test if they want. And never mind whether or not this virus is even something to be afraid of in the first place. Again, Doug Pederson, another asymptomatic sufferer, and of all of these lies that were being fed, the idea that there can be an asymptomatic carrier who doesn't feel any symptoms, but whose breath still has the capability to kill you, is the most evil lie of all. And this bullshit needs to stop. So let's look at the numeric riddle, because these outlets think we're fucking retards. And everything they give us is right there under our nose. They're literally casting a spell of fear. Hence the word spelling in the English language. So, of course, there's a riddle here, and as we usually do, we'll start with Doug Pederson's age on the date of his diagnosis and the date of the subsequent news story. The first thing that stood out is that he just recently turned 630 months old. On top of this, if you measure from his most recent birthday, you get a span of 6 months and 3 days. Without the end date, the date of today's news story is also 6 months and 3 days after his birthday. And this is significant because in the alphabetic order, COVID-19, COVID-19, has a numeric value of 63. Towards the end of this video, we'll glance at the astrology behind this story as well, which is also relevant. But let's stick with the numbers for starters. Doug Pederson was born on the date 1/31, January 31st. This is very appropriate for a coach who won the Super Bowl championship. In the alphabetic order, Super Bowl equals 131. So does the word championship. Both of these, 131. Pederson led the Philadelphia Eagles to win Super Bowl 52. And all of these sports totally appearing to be scripted, predetermined, staged. Nothing that we see is really naturally occurring. And here's another example of this. Measuring from the date of this game, which was played on February 4th of 2018, Remember that 218 number for later. Measuring to the date of his diagnosis, remember, the Eagles announced this yesterday, Sunday, so that's the most important date here. This was a span of 130 weeks and 1 day after that Super Bowl championship. Today's news story without the end date, also 130 weeks and 1 day. Again, championship 131, just like Super Bowl. Furthermore, this was Super Bowl 52. And Doug Pederson, by virtue of his 1968 birthday, is currently 52 years old. This story is also neatly aligned with the start of the NFL season. August 2nd, the date of the Philadelphia Eagles announcement, falls 39 days before the first game of the year. And notice how the first game is on 9/10, September 10th. Well, this news story came out 910 days after Doug Pederson won the Super Bowl. The Eagles, along with most other teams, actually begin their season on the 13th, which is 42 days after this story. Notice how the name Pederson equals both 42 and 39 in our two standard reduction methods, including the reverse order. What also stands out is the 96 in the name Pederson. 96 is the reverse gematria of the word corona. 96 with the alphabetic order flipped backwards, Z through A. So once again, measuring from Doug Pederson's birthday to the date of this story, and we'll look at the similar riddle with Sean Payton in a little bit, don't worry. This story was 6 months and 2 days after Doug Pederson's birthday. And of course, that's interesting as well because Doug Pederson equals 62 in reduction numerology. This story related to Super Bowl 52, which sums to 62 in that same method. 62 is also the ordinal value of the word disease. Notice how disease also has a reduction value of 26. Relevant in this case because Pederson is also 26 weeks after his birthday, and he's exactly 26 weeks before his next birthday. Not only does disease have this numerology, but so does the word virus, as well as the name of this virus, COVID, summing to 26. And of course, it's 26 weeks before Pederson's 53rd birthday. COVID equals 53 in ordinal. In our reverse method, notice how Philly equals 26. Wow, also 82 in ordinal. The date of this announcement came out August 2nd. But the reason I point out the 26 is because of the prime number relationship. Ooh, haven't seen this error in a while. The 26th prime number is 101. And that's relevant because Philadelphia sums to 101 in the alphabetic order. This upcoming season here in 2021 will be the 101st NFL season all time. Before I look at this quote, I want to race back up to the numerology here. Or I should say astrology. So Doug Pederson was born on January 31st, which makes him an Aquarius in standard astrology. Now, Aquarius is the exaltation of the planet Mercury. And when you plug in Doug Pederson's age on the date of this news story, notice how of all these numbers for all the different planetary ages, there's only one that's a full number, and it's the planet Mercury. Notice how this story was published exactly 109 mercurial days since Doug Pederson's birthday. And how odd is that, considering he was just diagnosed with COVID-19? Now, Mercury is very interesting. Of course, it has 1 day per 2 years, whereas we have 365 days per year on Earth. Mercury spins in such an odd fashion that it actually takes 2 years to complete a day. And 109 mercurial days later, just like the number 19. So, of course, by virtue of 109 mercurial days, this is also 218 mercurial years, or orbits, around the sun. 218, a lot like 2018, the year in which Doug Pederson won the Super Bowl with the Eagles. To finish this off, I just want to point out the quote, the very first quote they used in this article, and quotes, especially this length, will virtually always have relevant gematria. And in this case, they say he's asymptomatic and doing well. How terrifying. Asymptomatic, doing well. You know, what is everyone so scared of? And I want to point out the fear element to this is the biggest part. And think about what are the odds of this, right? Just 6 days before this story broke, Doug Pederson says, I feel extremely safe in these environments. You know, getting back with the players and getting these NFL games back together. I feel so safe. And then, boom, what do you know? Infected with coronavirus. Remember Rand Paul? His father, Ron Paul, dismissed coronavirus as a hoax a few months ago, back in March. And then a couple days later, his son, Rand Paul, tested positive for the virus. Again, another media hoax meant to make people who brush off this disease look crazy. What about the first NBA player to be diagnosed with the disease? Remember, this shut down the NBA season on March 11th. Rudy Gobert, who touched every microphone at a Jazz media conference before being diagnosed with the virus. So another guy who's mocking the disease and then suddenly comes down with it. This is the media's tactic on making the people who are speaking the truth about this virus seem insane, seem ridiculous, seems foolish. But really, it's the same shit every time. Anyway, this quote sums to 275. And this is the gematria of their favorite number, 666, 275. Of course, corona is 6 letters. It sums to 66. See the... Actually, I don't know if I put this link in the description. I'm going to add it now, though. My video on essentially how the number 666 is coded into the coronavirus agenda up and down. Completely. So I'll put this in the description under this video for people who are watching this after the fact. And whether you're watching live or archived, always appreciate the support. Anyone who helps spread or share this information, you're great in my book. And everything, again, it's free to share. You know, we're trying to wake people up. We're not trying to make money here on this channel. At least not as long as I don't have to. So then let's look at how this relates to Sean Payton, who was diagnosed with coronavirus. And I made this post on March 19th, the same day that we got this news story. Sean Payton, first NFL figure to have coronavirus, again, from March 19th. And think about the date 3/19, as March 19th would be written. Well, if you measure from 3/19 to the date of this story, oh, look at this, it's 19 weeks and 3 days. Of course, this story on 8/2, August 2nd, Saints equals 82 in the alphabetic order. The coach of the Saints coming down with it. And now the coach of Philly, 82, diagnosed on August 2nd. Well, as far as Sean Payton's numerology, he was born he was 56 years old. He still is 56 years old. I have this wrong in the post. He wasn't born in 56. He was 56 years old. And that's the reduction gematria of coronavirus. And just as we talked about the 19 riddle being present in Doug Pederson's numerology, this story about Sean Payton was published on the 19th of the month. And in reduction, Saints equals 19. As far as the date 19/3, which it can also be written as, 193 is the 44th prime number, and Saints equals 44 in reverse reduction. Saints equals 82. This story was the 82nd day since Sean Payton's birthday. It also had numerology of 26. Remember COVID, virus, disease 26. So does the name Payton, 26 in reverse reduction. So there's another riddle there. I invite you to check the video out that's linked down in the description below. But ultimately, this constant lie from the mainstream media needs to be exposed. And you're listening to a guy who's on his second YouTube channel. Back in February of 2018, when I caught on to this code and began exposing it, my videos started to go viral. But what do you know? All of a sudden, conspiracy theorists were determined to be crazy in the media, and most of our content started being censored. And people are now starting to accept censorship because, oh, it's a life and death thing, you know? What if I go out and die because someone who's uninformed isn't wearing a mask? This is the type of bullshit that needs to stop. And I tell you what, it's not going to stop unless we do something to stop it. And I'm not saying any violence or anything like that, but at some point, these broadcasters need to be taken off the air. They shouldn't be allowed to spew their bullshit in every direction until people actually accept it. 2 videos ago, I did a little breakdown on a social experiment where a woman was not even asked to stand. She just started standing because everyone else in the room with her was standing at the beep in a waiting room, and then she started doing it. Even when all the other people in the room left, she still stood up. Even when other people came in, they started standing up. And that's what you're seeing here in 2020, the ultimate lie repeated over and over and over and over. And despite the fact that there's no science, no peer-reviewed science showing that masks actually prevent disease, or that this disease is even transmittable, but that's for another day, people still buy into it. They still want to wear the masks because the more they look around and the more people that are wearing masks, the more out of place they feel. So I urge everyone, don't feel out of place. Don't fall in line with the sheep who are accepting the muzzles on their face just so they can go shop, just so they can buy something. Stand up for your rights. Don't wear one unless you absolutely have to, and I understand some of you do, but as long as you understand what the agenda behind it is and continue to try to be that beacon of light around with people around you, try and spread the truth because this stuff resonates. And the only thing they can do with the truth is try to hide it or mock it, even though this is absolutely 100% the proven code they're using to lie to us every single day. Peace, love, God bless. Talk to you next time. See ya.